All right, so obviously not everybody's thrilled with this, including Texas Tech's athletic director, Ted Mitchell, who said, like many across our state and within the footprint of our league, I've been extremely disappointed by the actions and intentions of our friends in Austin and Norman. From day one of the Big 12 Conference's existence, Texas Tech has been a proud and trustworthy partner. Let's bring in some proud and trustworthy partners here. By the way, this statement also says the landscape of collegiate athletes shifts. I can promise Red Raider Nation that our leadership will diligently pursue all options to best position Texas Tech for long-term success. So let's break it down. Tom Luginbill, Harry Lyles. We got Lugs and Lyles. I feel like we've got the next best thing since Air Supply. Guys, got a lot to break down here. Lugs, let's start with you. What's next for the Big 12?
Well, first and foremost, guys, is anybody as stunned as I am that in this day and age of access and instant information in the internet and people not being able to keep their mouths shut, that this went on for 6 months and Bob Bowlesby and nobody else in the league had any clue this bomb was being dropped? I think that's staggering, and it's almost sinister, if you will. What's next? The end of the Big 12. And the problem is, and listening to Heather there, the television rights negotiation and the power that you have has a lot to do with your member institutions. Is that going to cut it with a Houston, with a Memphis, with a Cincinnati? Does that make up a Power 5 conference? I don't think it does. I don't think you have a Power 5 conference in the Big 12 without Texas or Oklahoma. There are 4 slots left to make a 16-team league in the Pac-12, 2 in the Big 10, 2 over in the ACC. Some teams better start planning an exit strategy.
You mentioned the Pac-12, and before we get to you, Harry, let's at least acknowledge here what the Pac-12 commissioner had to say as he said, quote, I consider the Pac-12 an exclusive club with a high barrier to entry. We love the schools and teams we have today. We're not actively seeking to poach any teams from any conference, but we'd be foolish to not listen if schools call us. So I think the statement we would expect. Harry Lyles, what's next then for the Big 12 as they try and figure this out?
I mean, first off, that's kind of a hilarious statement from the Pac-12 just to say, hey, we're exclusive, but if you guys want in, we're listening. I feel like everybody's kind of got to be on their toes here right now just because when you look at what the SEC would become, if you are the Big 12, if you are the Pac-12, if you are the ACC, if you're the Big 10, you're open to anything at this point just so you could keep up with the SEC. You know, I actually just got back from SEC Media Days yesterday, and they handed out these, which is supposedly antibacterial hand sanitizer, but I think this might be tiers from the other 4 of the Power 5, because if you're them, you got to figure something out, and you got to figure something out quick, because it seems like this is happening a lot faster than we thought.
Well, and keep in mind, too, with Texas and Oklahoma, Harry, we've only had one team between those two actually challenge in the college football playoff, all right? So now you remove another viable conference option to crash the party, and if we're going to talk about playoff expansion, we're inevitably going to start talking about power conferences being built around this.
But that's part of this conversation, Luke, that I think is interesting because playoff expansion, even if we go to 12 teams, now other commissioners need to be looking around and saying, how do we protect ourselves from 6 or 8 of those teams coming out of the SEC? Because that becomes a reality, right? Doesn't it?
It has to. I think it does. And again, this is going to turn into a lot of CYA. Everybody's got to come up with a plan to be in the mix. Where are we going to belong? Where are we going to go? And let's not forget, this isn't just about the sport of football. Think about it if you're Kansas. You might say on the surface, oh, Kansas isn't overly attractive. Well, they are in basketball, so it's not just football.
Yeah, Tom, and I think this honestly has a trickle-down effect to the group of 5 teams because, some of the schools that you mentioned that could possibly join the Big 12, that's going to just continue to have a snowball effect. This is going to affect a lot of the smaller conferences as well, and I think that the effect here is just going to be something that none of us can really predict.
Yeah, this is going to be epic change, which we're getting used to this summer, but this really, truly changes the entire landscape. Now, if there's one thing we know, college football Twitter accounts are always on top of making us laugh, and this was no exception. Maryland wasted no time posting this from their official account, as you see. Lose to Maryland in the Big Ten, swerve off, join the SEC. Good work by Maryland. Anytime you control somebody in a little college football, I love it. In the meantime, the dominoes that could fall from this situation are absolutely endless. We'll break.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.